Let me ask Mr. LaPierre. I just at the outset want to say I'm grateful for the work of the NRA in providing training in safe gun ownership to millions of Americans. And I hope you'll take into account the data I've offered on gun prosecutions. But I do disagree with a point you made in your testimony. You said, and I think I quote, that background checks will never be universal because criminals will never submit to them. And while that may be true, I think the point that Captain Kelly makes is telling. And if we, in combination, put in place tougher restrictions on straw purchases and tougher enforcement on those who buy guns legally but then sell them to those who shouldn't have them, and we put in place universal background checks and impose some responsibility on responsible gun owners to report lost or stolen weapons in combination, wouldn't all of these things effectively move us towards a country where the number of those who shouldn't have weapons can't get access to them?
No, Senator, what I think you're going to end up with is a huge, massive bureaucracy with honestly, a huge waste of police resources and money that could go into doing things in the police criminal justice area that would actually save lives. That study that you were talking about actually says where criminals get their guns, 39.5 from friends and family, 37% from street or black market, 11% from licensed dealers, 10% by theft, 1.7% at gun shows.
Right.
I just think that you're going to, if you try to do this universal background check, which sounds whatever, it ends up being a universal federal nightmare imposed upon law-abiding people all over this country. Criminals will ignore it. The federal government won't, we already know, won't prosecute. The vice president told at the meeting with our people, said they didn't have time to prosecute those type of cases. So what's the point of the whole thing? If you let the criminal or the mentally ill,
I'm almost out of time. Forgive me for the brief cycle. Sure. Just to take at face value the data you just suggested, it's not just closing the gun show loophole. It's also thoroughly enforcing those who transfer weapons bought legally to those who shouldn't have them. And an awful lot of the folks you cited are getting their hands on weapons inappropriately through so-called straw purchases or through illegal transfers.
Pledge called the Sandy Hook Promise. This promise I would like to read. We have it on a chart here. It is, I promise to honor the 26 lives lost at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I promise to do everything I can to encourage and support common sense solutions that make my community and our country safer from similar acts of violence. I promise this time there will be change. I'm proud to say Steve Barton has made the Sandy Hook Promise. Gabby Giffords and Mark Kelly have made the Sandy Hook Promise. Tens of thousands of Americans in Connecticut and across the country have made that promise, as have I. So I want to ask Mr. LaPierre, will you make the Sandy Hook Promise?
Senator, our Sandy Hook Promise is always to make this country safer, which is why we've advocated immediately putting police armed security in schools, fixing the mental health system, computerizing the records of those mentally adjudicated. I would hope we could convince some of these companies that are just, I'm not talking about First Amendment, I know they have a right to do it, to stop putting out such incredibly violent video games that desensitize. And finally, we need to enforce the reasonable gun laws on the books that NRA support that we do not do. That will make the country safer.
Can I take that as a yes?
Yes, that's a yes.
Thank you.
We have 11,000 police instructors.
And can I invite and urge you to advocate that your members, responsible gun owners, and I thank them for being responsible gun owners, also join in the Sandy Hook Promise?
Senator, there is not a law-abiding firearms owner across this United States that wasn't torn to pieces by what happened in Sandy Hook. They just don't believe that their constitutional right to own a firearm and the fact that they can protect their family with a firearm it resulted in the problem.
Let me ask you this, Mr. LaPierre. You and I agree there ought to be more prosecutions of illegal gun possession and illegal gun ownership.
You know, the problem, Senator, is I've been up here on this Hill for 20-some years agreeing to that, and nobody does it. And that's the problem. Every time we say we're going to do it, and I make you this bet right now, when President Obama leaves office 4 years from now, his prosecutions will not be much different than they are now. If each U.S. attorney did 10 a month, they'd have 12,000. If they did 20 a month, they'd have 24,000. Let's see if we get there.